Welcome to GNCC's Espresso Live, our webinar series that started about 18 months ago to provide you with information and dialogues to better understand our changing environment. My name is Mishka Balsam and I will be your moderator for the next hour. Today we're asking ourselves if the etiquette of the not so old days is still applicable. A firm handshake, a kiss on the cheek, a friendly hug are among the polite gestures now on hold indefinitely because of social distancing guidelines to keep people safe during this time. Interacting with others with half of our face covered means losing some of the nonverbal ways we rely on to express ourselves, like smiling. What role do gestures now play in face-to-face but masked meetings? Not asking how to respond, what is expected, or finding new ways to express ourselves are critical as face-to-face business meetings are on the rise and more people are back in their workplaces. And not knowing how to respond and how to behave adds stress to our life at a time when we don't need any additional uncertainty. Etiquette experts point to safer ways to show respect for one another, like swapping out handshakes with a head nod, that have emerged in the past few months and that will likely remain with us for some time to come. The actual word etiquette comes from the French word of estique, with the noun describing the requirements of behaviors according to the conventions of society. It includes the proper conduct that is established by a community for various occasions, including ceremonies, court, formal events, and everyday life. Although people have become more casual in recent years, etiquette is not outdated, according to our guest today, Julie Blais, who is Canada's go-to etiquette expert, energizing speaker, and sought-after media collaborator. With over 50 collaborations a year, you may have seen, read, or heard her on CTV Your Morning, The Globe and Mail, CBC, Entertainment Tonight, Canadian Living, or People.com, amongst others. She is the Chief Etiquette Officer and founder of EtiquetteJulie.com, a training and development firm dedicated to teaching professionalism to enhance the interpersonal skills, brand, and image of employees at all levels. Her mission is simple: you, your team, and your company shining at work. Julie Blais is the author of 4 books, including Etiquette, Confidence, and Credibility. Julie, it is wonderful to have you with us today.
Good morning, Mishka. So very nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And we're looking forward to talk about everything from handshakes, or about how can we explain or replace gestures while we are masked. How can we communicate with people who don't adhere to the same safety guidelines as we do, as well as looking at maybe video conferencing etiquette that actually also might help all of us. Today's format is actually that of questions and answers. And please, we welcome any additional questions. We have had dozens of them coming our way on this important topic, actually. And but if you, our attendees, are interested in asking a question live, we would love that. Is at the bottom of your screen, you will see the button that says raise the hand. If you raise your hand, it knows that we can unmute you on our end, and we will do so. So please watch for that. Another option is also one called the chat function, which most of you are likely very familiar with. It's a field where you can type in the questions and we can see it, and we'll do our best to get to all the questions that have been submitted to us via email, social media, as well as during this live webinar. If you wish to enable live transcript, please refer to the bottom of the Zoom screen for that option as well. And on that note, Julie, let me start out by saying that our world, as we know it, has changed over the past 18 months, and spontaneous office or workplace conversations have been replaced with video conferencing like we do today, meaning that we have had, in many ways, less informal or casual conversations. And that is one of the questions that has come from a number of people, and they have really asked us to saying, how can we ensure what these less informal water cooler conversations don't exist anymore, not when we are going on these Zoom calls and participate in Skype and other ones that are more purpose-driven. Answer question, question answer, task driven. How has that impacted our workplace and our work culture? And what does it mean and how we can best move forward?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions in there. You know, that famous water cooler talk is somewhere where you start to build relationships, where you find out about your colleagues, about their family situations, about some of their hobbies, and that's really where you connect. We are human beings. We are human beings, and we know that probably some of our guests here today, some of our participants, Mishka, are more introverts, and I don't have to tell you just by looking at me, you probably know that I'm an extrovert, but I also have the capacity to really focus and be, I apologize. There's construction and I cannot control that with my neighbor. And now my phone rang. So yeah, even the etiquette expert is not perfect.
But to know, Julie, it's very, very comforting.
So everybody can relax. I'm not handing out etiquette tickets, okay? No etiquette tickets today. So it's up to us to create the opportunities to connect. And to go for those places where it was the water cooler, maybe you would meet in the cafeteria, maybe you would cross paths down the hallway, maybe you'd end up in the lunchroom together. So I believe that it's up to us to create these opportunities to connect from human to human. You know, some of the people over here today usually do business B2B, business to business. Others do business B2C, business to client, business to consumer. But Mishka, I don't know about you, but I'm always doing business H2H, human to human. It's another person at the end of the screen. It's another person that's going to buy my services that I'm going to encourage or what have you. So we have to create those opportunities. If you're a leader, and you want to have that team building, that spirit happen within your team. And you've probably onboarded people where you've never even shaken hands with them in the last year and a half. So before a meeting, well, make it for 15 minutes of social time. Organize team building activities. You can play Jeopardy online. There's so many, but we have to be creative. We have to create these opportunities for connections. And they must be adapted to the other person, And you know, sometimes that good old fashioned phone call, not that texting, not that messaging, but picking up the phone to connect. You see something in the news, you remember that it's maybe their birthday, you go online, you go to their website and their latest press release, an opportunity to congratulate, just pick up the phone to connect. So we have that responsibility to look for opportunities to connect until we can go back for coffee, dining, whatever it is.
You know, Julie, I think you're making some excellent points here, because I first really love your perspective of saying, like, it's human to human, actually, the connection that we have, and that we really need to look at it differently and not even just saying this is a business to business connection. It is a human to human one. And I think that aspect has become significantly more important and clearer to most of us during this past 18 months that are there. And the second part that I really appreciate in what you had expressed is also to saying, if we can't meet, we won't meet as often with people, but we need to find different ways to connect with them. And one of the suggestions that you made is to say, see what's going on in their life, check out their social media status, look on their website and the latest release that they have, and find an entry point to connect with those businesses, a dialogue, and saying, I saw that you are doing this, I hear that you're celebrating that, and use it as an entry point of having exactly that casual connection that is there. And yes. I think those are great suggestions. They're honestly, they're helpful.
Yes, and invite your network to come here and to chat with Mishka at the Espresso, right? Like you would go on a conference, you would attend the Chamber of Commerce event, and then you would ask people to come in, well, do so virtually.
Yes.
Give them a platform. If your team, and you know somebody in the community where there could be services that could be beneficial to your team members, invite them in for a Friday, like a half hour, a Q&A, educate them at the same time. So many opportunities for connections virtually, just as many as in person. We just have to think about the needs. Is it the needs of our team members? Is it the needs of our community? And what about the needs of your clients or your suppliers? It's like win-win. You help them, they're going to help you. Scratch my back, I'm going to scratch yours. But we just have to have, what I'd like to say is when we're doing business H2H, and I have a great workshop that deals with H2H, but when we're dealing with H2H, when we're sensitive to the fact that it's another human being, we must adopt an empathetic perspective. Empathetic that, what may feel right to me may not be right for them. So I've got to think, what keeps them up at night? What are they thinking when they're getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they can't fall back to sleep? What are their problems? Now, can I solve those problems? Do I have solutions? Do I have answers? Maybe not. But then maybe somebody in my network. And, when we're thinking about network, it's about giving somebody else the opportunity to shine, the opportunity to connect. And then you build your relationships and it becomes exponential. I like to think about a network. I don't know about you, Mishka, but when I think about a network, it's like this giant spider web. And like you're somehow in the middle, and then you connect that person with that person with that person. And then you connect them and off they go. And then they have a very beneficial relationships. And you don't have to be the one that's going to do it. But if you connect to other people within your network, you win as well.
Yeah. And you make an excellent point. I think chambers across the world actually have always said we're the connectors, because we're bringing people on together and saying, we don't have on hold all the answers. We're a team of 8 people at our chamber, and they're smaller, they're bigger chambers across the world. But what we allow and what we can facilitate is the networking that exists there. When you mentioned something, and it reminded me of a conversation that I had with another business colleague, actually, about 2 weeks ago. And she described herself, she says, I'm like a dog off the leash. I'm just meeting up with everyone. I'm running out there. And she says, I can't just since that ability to meet in person again, she is just that like any opportunity I have, I actually, I take advantage of it. And it reminded me when I listened to her of saying, with so many people being introverts, with so many people having lived in isolation for so long, that approach works for some, and I can fully understand it and the passion she brings forward. And at the same time, not everyone actually maybe yet feels comfortable with it. And one of the ways we've often referred to it is saying, we really are all learning to flex our social muscle again to some degree. It's saying like, how do we move forward here? And where we might have had days previously with 5 face-to-face meetings, we might actually be all right and with having 2 in one day versus too many of that, or even going back to a workplace and dealing with people face-to-face in a work environment can be hot, can be stressful to some individuals.
Yeah, people are going to approach this differently. And there are so many good things, I think, that are coming out of the pandemic. I think that one of them is the opportunity for people to state when they're not comfortable with something. For people, whereas prior to the pandemic, whether it be for cultural reasons, maybe someone was protecting a loved one that was undergoing treatment for maybe chemotherapy for cancer or something like that. People were not comfortable shaking hands. Maybe they were like Howie Mandel, germaphobes, whatever reason, there was always that hesitation for the handshake. There was this hesitation for meeting in person. Now that safety, security has come back up top of mind, because that's what we want. We want everybody safe. We want everybody secure. So now people have the opportunity to say, you know, I'm really happy to see you, and I like to recommend, like, maybe you do an namaste. Maybe you take your hand and you put it on your heart, and it all starts visually with that eye contact, that smile. And yeah, there's going to be that little back and forth of like, okay, I can see the other person. Oh my God, that hand's coming, or that big bear hug is coming on. And what am I going to do? I don't want that. And then you can go back slowly, take your hand. I'm really happy to see you, but for now, it's probably best we don't shake hands. And that was my recommendation before the pandemic. Now people are more comfortable saying it, and we can do that. And on the flip side, if someone has declined once a handshake, twice a handshake, then I'm going to register, okay, for whatever reason, and none of my business. That person is choosing not to shake hands, we won't. And the same thing for a meeting in person. We can invite someone for an in-person meeting, but if I'm not comfortable, well, for now, why don't we keep it to virtual for now?
And Julie, making some excellent points, and it actually speaks to some of the questions that have come forward. So I thought I'll jump into them, because what people and all of us, we want to be friendly, we want to be on good terms, and we want to value that human-to-human relationship that we have here. And sometimes it might be misunderstood when we are putting up our guidelines to saying this doesn't work for me, and what is maybe the best way of addressing that. So one of the questions that has come forward, and we will get to the handshake too, is that people said, we've been invited to share a ride to a business or to a business meeting where a colleague says, oh, just jump in the car with me and we'll drive together to Hamilton, Toronto, or wherever it is. And individuals don't feel comfortable with that. How can they best express it? What is the best way for them to move forward in saying, you know what, here is because we lack words sometimes and vocabulary, because we haven't been in these situations. This has been a normal practice for many years of life, and here it is changing.
Yeah, and that's an excellent question. Actually, I was on earlier this morning at 6:45, I was on CBC, and that question came about. And, you know, for all these questions, where these invitations, so it's an invitation to share a ride, it's an invitation for a meal, it's an invitation for coffee, and even socially, it's an invitation for a barbecue. You know, like we're going smack into like the fourth quarter, an invitation to gather, a networking event for the fourth quarter, whatever it is. All of these, first of all, you're going to start by thanking the person. Saying thank you is still in style. So thank you very much for thinking of me. I'd love to connect again. And then, you know, you take your time. You take your time. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for thinking about me. I'd love to connect. So then you'd say, yes, you recognize the opportunity. You express your happiness, your joy, whatever it is to connect, the opportunity. And then you're going to say, for now, let's please keep it virtual for now. And I really like the for now, because everything's evolving. Like even now, the guidelines, will they evolve? Probably. We're hearing talks about that third vaccination. Are guidelines going to change? I don't know what's going to happen with that. But like for now, that's my comfort zone. So recognize the opportunity, express your joy. And then lastly, you're going to say, for now, I would prefer to keep it at, and make a suggestion of how you'd prefer to connect.
Actually, Julie, and I think this is great, because even just the moment you said the words just for now, it just means like, this is me right now. And there's a level of acknowledging it, or the situation as it is, and it eases it. But I also liked when you mentioned you just thank them. thank them for it instead of immediately reacting and saying, no, this is not where I'm comfortable with. It's just to saying, you know, thank you so very much for doing it and for asking this. For now, this is the choice that I'm making. We have one of our attendees who's asked a question. It's Brenda.
Yes.
And their question is, how do you deal with unknown individuals behind, beside, or around you, perhaps at a grocery line, who do not wear masks and do not provide any space between you, especially when you politely request that they back up and they start becoming a little bit more hostile and maybe verbal and trying to engage with you on this topic. And I think it's something that we likely have all faced, and we have maybe also been, without knowing, come too close to people, you know, like, and sometimes it's not even intentional. It is really by accident. And that has happened to me this week. I was somewhere in a store and I remember I needed to look at the screen and I got within 2 meters of that individual and only to notice it and then step away again. But in this particular case, I think the question is fair. We're dealing not with someone who we have a relationship with, but we're dealing with someone who's likely unknown to us.
And that is definitely a fair question. And, you know, I've spoken about empathy. And like you stated, Mishka, it happens to all of us. We're in our bubble, we're thinking about our parents, we're thinking about the grocery list, we're thinking about what can go wrong, what is going wrong, whatever. Everybody's in their head, their private bubble. And so first we're going to start by giving others the benefit of the doubt. We're not going to accuse. And then, you know, for the situation here in the grocery line, Brenda, well, you know what you have at the grocery store? You have your cart, you know, and if you distance yourself from that cart, well, you're probably at that 2 meters of social distancing. So you can gently, and remember, a lot happens with our faces, eye contact, even when I'm wearing that mask, like over here, right, one end above my nose. When you're wearing that mask, like you can see by the end of contact, so you would turn, look at the person, or take your cart gently, look at the person, back away. Just that in itself, I promise you, that works. Now, something very key here, when you're in a public or a private place where there are people that are in authority, go to those people. Although we're giving the benefit of the doubt to the other person that is not obeying the guidelines, the other person that may be in their bubble that is getting way too close for comfort, look to who are the people that are in authority and go to them. It's their responsibility to ensure that the government guidelines are being followed in their establishment, grocery store, hairdresser, restaurant, manicure, whatever it is. You certainly don't want to find yourself in a position of confrontation because you don't know what that person is going through right now, and you don't know their history. So you have to be careful. And the recommendation is, like, when you're coming around with your cart and you're looking at the person and you can say hi and then observe, listen, is the person just about ready to jump down your throat, or do they just go hi and you go, oh, can't wait until all of this is over and we can go back to regular activities. So if you have that leeway by the eye contact, by saying hello, they're responding in a friendly way. And just with the cart coming around, they'll go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. This happened to me. So give the other the benefit of the doubt, observe, friend or foe. Could my comments be perceived as friend or foe? Not sure. Go to the people that are in authority discreetly, tell them about the situation. They'll come on their little walkabout and they'll point back the person to obey the guidelines.
And I can actually see this working, especially with the example that Brenda brought forward in a grocery store and the opportunities that we have here. But there's a number of other participants who've also brought forward similar questions. And in this particular case, it was a very valuable client to them who half the time didn't wear the mask for meetings or wore the mask, as you had indicated, under the nose, not the proper way. But it's a critical client to them. Client wanted to meet in person. What is an individual supposed to do? What are they verbally supposed to say? How can they express themselves? Really understanding and getting the cues, we are looking at the situation differently.
Yeah. And if you are hosting that meeting, so you are in your place of business, because the right words, the right actions are going to be different in the two scenarios. The scenario where you are hosting that meeting in your establishment, or whether you're a visitor in their establishment. So let's make the distinction. Let's go on with scenario number one. Scenario number one, you are in your place of work. That client has come to visit you. They've requested a meeting. You're happy to have them. First of all, you are going to inform them, just like when you invite them to the restaurant, you're going to send them the link where the restaurant is, maybe the menu, you're going to give them parking options, you're going to say how long it's going to be, if there's a dress code, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The same thing, you're going to set yourself up for success and that person by sharing the guidelines of your company, your organization. And then once on site, you're going to remind them. Just wanted to let you know that over here at GNCC, we've taken forward the guidelines and we're requesting that you wear a mask at all times, and you're going to have all the supplies. I used to chat about this all the time. I used to talk when it was virus season, you should have like your little virus kit. And some people have beautiful baskets in organization. We now know that there's going to be, yes, that hand sanitizer, there probably are some masks, and maybe you want to throw in there a couple of mints to freshen the breath, because we know that with the mask, sometimes it gets more challenging, and, let them know where the water is. So like just show them the way of that. And then let's say you're in that meeting and you're spending time with them and you're going from one meeting to the next to introduce them to different people on the team, and you're noticing that they're not wearing that mask correctly. And you're like, okay, well, and then maybe you're going to say something like, oh, it's tiring with those masks, but I'm just making sure that I'm keeping hydrated and that I'm comfortable. You're going to make a comment in relationship to your mask, and you're going to readjust yours. And you know what happens a lot of time with that? They imitate. They do the exact same thing. They'll do the same thing. If you're not successful with that, you're going to wait until you're one-on-one. You're not going to do this. You're not going to shame. You're not going to blame in front of other people. You're going to wait till you're one-on-one. And you're going to say, I would say something like, Mishka, I'm really happy that you came here today. And I just want to make sure that we understand, that you understand that our guidelines are pretty strict and severe. So to ensure your safety and that of all of our teams, I'm going to request that you please make adjustments to your mask, or if you'd like, we can provide you with some new masks. And so you notice that just here, although we're not in a real scenario, my voice went down, the tone goes down. You recognize that, and you're going to say, it's really tiring, it's difficult, and I understand, but then you're going to present options for that person. And it's really difficult to do. It's difficult to do, but your people. So that's why you're going to do it in private, one-on-one, adjust your tone, go slow, and then observe how are they reacting.
Yeah. Now, how is it different if I am now in their place? Because they're now their rules and their environment. They're critical client to me, they're critical human being to me. How do I deal with it at that time? I think we have the chance often to control sometimes we have the chance to control where meetings take place. So I think maybe the first step would be to say, invite them to our own offices, or invite them to a public place where the rules are in place. They might be easier to follow. But in case we are going to meet at their place where the rules are the same, the guidelines are the same, but maybe they're not adhered to in the same manner.
Well, you're going to be a good, gracious guest. You're not going to point fingers, and you may choose to excuse yourself without necessarily saying why. You're going to observe, maybe nobody's wearing masks. You've noticed that you went to the washroom, somebody didn't wash their hands, and that happened before the pandemic. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen again afterwards. I've seen that myself. And it's not up to us to be everybody's police. Like there's etiquette and there's ethics. So the police of the ethics, if they're following the guidelines or of their conscience, and you may just say, I'm not feeling very well. I'm not feeling right now. So if you, I'd like to please excuse myself if we could please reschedule the meeting. And then as you presented, Mishka, then you may decide to do it at your office where you know that you can control the environment. You cannot tell them, you cannot, and then if you're very close to that client, you may at some point, not right there. En français, on dit dans le vif de l'action, right there in the moment, it may be perceived as an attack and it may be counterproductive to the objective of your meeting. Mm-hmm. You have to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth when you're not feeling well. You are not feeling well. You're not feeling comfortable. You don't feel safe. So you don't have to say that you feel unsafe. No, but you can say that you're not feeling well.
Yeah. And then leave it on those terms and maybe have a different time where you can have maybe even a more honest conversation about it too, but maybe the time isn't right for that.
Especially if it's recurring.
Yes. Yes, and I think that is difficult. It's difficult for individuals, but I appreciate the suggestion of different ways and giving us some of the tools of different ways of approaching it to preserve the relationship, which is valuable to us, just because we don't agree on this one particular issue here.
Yeah, and that's key, the preservation of the relationship. Mishka, you bring about a very valid point. The preservation of the relationship, or even if we transfer that situation to a situation in our personal relationships or even professional relationships where the other person may not agree with an opinion, the values are not perfectly aligned, think going forward. Is it worth it for me to say something right now at this moment? Maybe at a later time it would be. Maybe at a time where things are calmer. But is it important right now to say something? Plus, do I have to be right? Do I have to be right? Can I let it go? Can I let it go? Because there are consequences to our words and to our actions. And I'm sure that any one of our participants here today that is here, they've probably been a witness to that. And even if we just for a moment think about the COVID-19, the pandemic, vaccination, and everything else, I'm sure that anybody who we have asked that they found themselves in situations where they had maybe to just take a deep breath and not say anything because they valued that person. And I'm just going to give some key words here to somebody where they find themselves in that situation where there may not be an alignment of values or of opinions. The magic words are, I value you as a client, as a colleague. I value you as a friend, or you are important to me. I cherish our friendship, our alliance, our business relationship goes back 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. And I don't think that we'll agree on this one. So why don't we just agree to disagree and then propose another topic? Let's get back to business, or let's get back to whatever.
Yeah. You know what, actually, over the years, I've always kind of looked at it and I thought we often look at the differences between us and how we approach it, how you approach it, how I approach it, which one is better, which one is not. And I think we're often better served actually when we find the things that we have in common, the common ground, and build from there. Because it builds trust that is there. And I think trust is the one that moves forward and advances relationships that are there. While at the same time, I think, especially during these times, I think safety is paramount at all times.
And that's what everybody wants, to the point of building on similarities. You know, that's the beginning of my cultural intelligence workshops. And when I think about culture, and do you know that we are 99.9% genetically the same? You, me, and everybody else here. Isn't that fascinating? So there's only that 0.1 of difference, genetically speaking. And if you think about culture, if I'm sure that I say to everybody here, is there a difference in culture between somebody that grew up, that was raised in Niagara, compared to somebody that's now downtown Toronto, somebody that's in Mississauga or Scarborough or Montreal or even Vancouver? Yeah, but to somebody else outside of Canada, they would say, oh, those Canadians. Well, I want you to take this image of culture like an iceberg. So when the Titanic, right, when the crew started to see the iceberg, they saw this little mountain of ice. Well, only 10%. 10% is probably most of the sensory experience that we get from people that may be from another culture. They may look different, they may sound different. When they cook, it smells different. And we love all these like culinary experiences, but down here, that 90%, that's what person and individual is all about. And the more deeper that you go, you're getting into beliefs and values. And when you get down here, Mishka, to your point about similarities, well, down here, you don't see it, but you're probably going to find out that all of us want to feel safe. All of us want to be recognized. All of us, even as parents, want to have better futures for our children. So to your point of going to find out about the person, the values and the beliefs, that's where you want to start your connections. What do we have in common right now? We all want to get back to business. We all want to get back to offering our services, selling our goods, buying goods. Yes, definitely. Similarities is the key.
Yeah, I think so too. And understand what we value in them. I do want to come back because this question is coming forward from a couple of participants right now and has been actually in the last couple of weeks has come to us directly, specifically for this webinar. You've already touched on it, and that is, how do we discreetly redirect people who want to greet us with a handshake or even an elbow touch? What does the 2021 handshake look like? What has it replaced? And the other question that has also come forward, where some people are saying, and they want to look down the road and saying, like, will it make a comeback or not?
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at it for now.
No doubt about it in my mind. If you take a look at the euro, if you like that, it's just like, even we saw like on the CBC yesterday, Hannah Thibodeau, I just love Hannah. I think she's so great. Follow her on social media. You're going to see all kinds of inside things. She's following O'Toole on the campaign trail. And like, he gets on the plane with his wife and all they want to do, the elbow. Well, between you and I, that famous elbow to elbow, I don't know about you, but they've taught us to go, well, if you're going, and then we're going elbow to elbow, Mishka, do you want to go? Probably not. So I would decline that. So just declining a handshake, declining elbow to elbow. As I said before, it happens visually first. When you go to do that handshake, you're looking at the person, you're recognizing the person, and then that hand's going to come up. What you're going to do is that you're going to look at the person. So very nice to see you again. And then you're going to look at the oncoming hand, and then you're going to take your hand, or you're going to go to namaste. Really happy to see you, but it's probably best for now that we still maintain that social distance. And you're doing that, you know, with a smile on your face, you're acknowledging them. That's it. That's all. If somebody's so insistent, well, we're all going to make sure that our Purell is around somewhere. And then you're going to, it's perfectly appropriate to Purell. Well, put hand sanitizer into your hands afterwards, or to, if you have to, go to the washroom and wash your hands. But to decline it, it starts visually and you accompany it with the words.
Yeah, it's always interesting because when we started to have again in-person events, I was almost surprised by it. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect people to come forward. And especially those individuals, even we have a lot of people who have been double vaccinated, and now they're thinking, because I know you are, I am, they make the assumption I'm comfortable now with a handshake. Well, I might not be comfortable with it.
And for whatever reason, maybe you were not before, right? We talked about Howie Mandel. He's a germaphobe. Maybe somebody at home is undergoing chemotherapy. Maybe it's cultural reasons, whatever it is, it is, you have the right not to shake hands with you. The question, will it make a comeback? It's already making a comeback. Already making, and it's not even a comeback. We put it on hold. For the safety of everyone. We put it on hold. But now, that's one of the positive, people that were not comfortable before, because there's an element, when we think about our cultural intelligence, there's an element of proximity. And depending on the culture, in certain cultures, you negotiate nose to nose.
Mhm.
In other cultures, like people touch all the time. In certain cultures, you don't. But one thing's for sure, in business, the only acceptable touch is the handshake, even a hug, way too close for comfort. Belly to belly? I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I think you're making a really good point. And I think it's right. One of the things that people have observed, and I've heard from my colleagues too, is almost stopping. When people are approaching you, it's like you stop. You don't go further towards them. You adhere to the 2 meters. And I think right there, I think we already are communicating it and saying, this is our space that we feel safe in and we want to adhere to. I want to come to something else, because we talked about, and I liked your point about the elbow action one, and us that was a very good point. I hadn't actually considered it. But one of the things I want to talk about is video conferencing. And there have been a couple of questions that have come forward, because now we're a small rectangle, a small square in a sea of 80 other pictures that are there, or names on the side, or that just list us as participants. And people are saying, how can I ensure, how can I stand out? What are the do's or don'ts when it comes to video conferencing that has become so much more a communication tool now of ours, aside from put on the do not disturb, aside from reducing the clutter around us or the sounds around us and others as much as where we can manage it. But how do we ensure that we stand out? How can we create, maybe we're looking at it, we attend these video conferences with many people, but we really want to connect with 3 of those individuals. What are good ways to really maximize this tool that has been given to us?
Yeah, video conferencing has been going on for a while. It's not new since we went into the first lockdown. I've written about it. It's in my book. If you go to my website, etiquettejulie.com, I have a blog post. Actually, I have over 150 blog posts and many videos, over 50 videos. And the one that you'd want to go to on video conferencing is called Lights, Camera, Action. And just by these 3 words, lights, camera, action, right? And then you think about all that, just prepare as if like when we hear that in the movie business. Well, in the movie business, lights, camera, action, there's an intention. People know what they're going to go into. And I find that oftentimes people show up, not just in video conferencing, Mishka, but even for a meeting, they don't prepare. They don't prepare for the meeting, whether they're chairing the meeting sometimes. Yeah, some people do not. And then so there's that preparation ahead of time, and lights, camera, action. If you think of yourself as going on there, people seeing you, well, what am I going to wear? If I wore my favorite jeans today, you wouldn't see it. But if I had a t-shirt that said, I don't know, I'd rather be at the beach, probably that may be true. I'd always want to be at the beach, but I didn't put on makeup. I didn't put on my lighting. I didn't set up my background. Well, you'd be thinking, is she really the etiquette expert? I don't know. And there has to be a reflection. What do you want to shine? What do you want to shine? And what does your client think about you? So let's just for a moment here address attire. If I am an accountant for Lady Gaga versus an accountant for Bill Gates, could I dress differently? If I'm an accountant for Gaga, could I be wearing spiked heels, tight leather skirt, leopard jacket? Probably. If I'm an accountant for Bill Gates, could he maybe look at me differently? So I dress for the client that I want to attract. I dress for according to my profession or what have you. Doesn't mean that there is no creativity, but that's what you want to dress. Do you have to put on a suit when you're on video conferencing? No, probably not. But if you're interviewing or if you're pitching for like millions of dollars, well, you know what? The other people are going to interpret this as respect and how serious you're taking your pitch. So there's got to be a reflection ahead of time. Make sure that you're testing the technology. This morning, I was on with Savannah at 8:45 and we tested the technology so much so that we I chose to stay on the platform. The microphone, I asked her, is my voice coming out clearly or do I need my AirPods? She said, no, you're fine. Okay, what about the lighting? So all that needs to be taken into consideration. Now, as far as connecting with 3 or 4 individuals, and that depends. It depends on the agenda, but you certainly don't want to hoard the conversation, but you may want to reach out to them afterwards or privately in the chat, because we know, right? If I go down here, I could choose like one of the participants and say something like, you know, I really enjoyed what you said, or a great connection tool, LinkedIn. So anyone here, feel free to connect with me after on LinkedIn and say, I heard you chat with Mishka and I really enjoyed it. I'd like to connect. Definitely. So there are different ways, but for video conferencing, lights, camera, action, test the platform, look like what you're supposed to do for that client, tweak your environment. You can't see everything else back there. Okay, but you know, only I can see it, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So really set yourself up for success. And also lastly, as far as video conferencing goes, although you're not seeing across the screen, this is being recorded. Well, could somebody else be recording you back there? Whatever you say and do could be captured, could be recorded, and could go viral. Be conscious of that.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point actually that you're making, and really valuable actually moving forward. I also like your suggestion of actually leaving a certain platform like Zoom, Skype, Teams, whatever we've had, and saying, I want to connect with those individuals, but choose then like LinkedIn or any other social media platform that you know that they might be active on, to connect with them and utilizing that. And it's not feeling the pressure that you have to do it within that 1 hour video conference or call that you have, or this couple of hours that are taking place. Is switch it up and go to a different platform. We have always heard from employers how challenging it is, especially when they're onboarding new individuals, is when it comes to the softer skills. We have the education, we have everything else, but it's the softer skills that seem to be in some cases harder for us. What do you think, in your experience with employers that you've had, are the most important soft skills, and how can we nurture them?
Well, what I'd like to say about the soft skills, first of all, I think that they get a bad rap because they're called soft skills and they're people skills. We're right back where we started, Mishka. It is a human being. When I've been an HR manager, and I've coached students, I've coached executives. You know, when you get to that pool and you're recruiting and you're looking at all those resumes, you have criteria. And anybody here that is looking for a new position or that is seeking the new client, well, remember this. The only difference between you and everybody else, because once you've achieved that list of criteria, you have that master's degree, you have that doctorate, or you think you volunteered and you're different than the others, well, guess what? They volunteered too. You think that you put together a charity campaign, they may have too. From the moment that you get that interview, from the moment that you get that window where you can make your pitch, what's going to be the difference between you and everybody else is you. People will never forget Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou. People will never forget how you made them feel. Your resume, your portfolio, your website, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, okay, that's going to bring them in. That's going to get you that invitation. So what's going to be the difference is going to be how you're going to be with that person. So for those employers, the soft skills, what I would say, hire Julie. Let Julie come in and teach your team how to shake hands, how to refuse hands. And I'm talking a lot more than just dining etiquette, which for to use the art of conversation, how to dress, civility at work, sensory experience, cultural intelligence, bias awareness, all that. Soft skills, well, in my experience, the soft skills are the hardest to teach because you can go to school and get that degree. But if you're not so inclined, it's about a twist. And And I guess lastly, what I'd like to say about etiquette, it's the competitive edge. And my youngest son is an economist. And he said to me, he said, you know, Mom, he said, what you teach is E equals C squared. Well, E is etiquette, but C squared. The knowledge of etiquette will give you confidence, will give you credibility, will make you coherent, right, with what your role is, what you say and do. And it's the competitive edge. That's what etiquette does. And the point about confidence and credibility, that's why it's the title of my book, is that in the end, Mishka, I don't care if people do what I teach them to do, because once they know the rules, once they know the guidelines, do I introduce client to big boss or big boss to client? Once you know, you're able to focus on building a relationship as opposed to, oh my God, I don't know, can I talk now? Like, or even meeting etiquette. So to the employers, soft skills is something that if you can recruit and you can spot that person with the soft skill, and this is not Julie Blais that says this, but Richard Branson. Richard Branson said, if somebody has the right attitude, somebody has that client-centric focus, is aware of other human beings, I want them. And if they have that, whatever the basic criteria, everything else, I can teach them or I can send them to be educated. So remember that, not me. Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson said that.
I appreciate that. And I think it's right actually to look at it and saying that, especially from in a business environment, is to say, how do we ensure and how do we make sure that with everything we speak, it's actually client focused and client centric, and to understanding where is their challenge, not ours, not what we want, but where are their challenges and how can we actually assist them in moving forward. I am also wanting to say in the chat, we will share a link to your book, which we're really excited about. So for anyone who is interested in it, let us know, and you will also be redirected directly to your site, Julie. There's one last question that has come forward from a couple of people, and that has to do with social media. We're becoming much more involved in social media. What do you see as being one thing, if you would ask people or you would have a client and saying, stop doing that, the one thing that you're thinking is really going to hurt their credibility, it doesn't allow them to shine, it doesn't allow the organization to shine, what do you think it would be?
Well, first of all, if you're an employer, if your organization, make sure that you have a policy and everybody's in the loop about it. And be very, very clear. We've heard through the years, some people have gotten fired. Fired is the right word for what has been on social media. My overall general guideline is do the 2-fridge test, 2 fridges. So typically in a non-pandemic world, we have 2 fridges in our lives. We have a fridge at home and we have a fridge at the office. So before you're going to post something, whether it's a photo, whether you're going to make a comment, think about that post and put it on the fridge at home. Your children see it, your family members see it, your neighbor, and let's put in there grandma who's like 79 years old. Then you're all good with that post? Okay, fine. Take it the other fridge at work. Big boss wanted to meet with #1 client. There's no room at Starbucks. So they decided to come into the lunchroom, and big boss is offering a coffee to #1 client and goes to the fridge. She opens the door and pours some cream. Well, on that fridge, that post, does it pass the test? If it does, you're good to go. So think, what could be the repercussions of that post personally? Could it affect you? Because sometimes that people have validated here, but it's come back to haunt them personally, or vice versa. The 2-fridge test. As far as being specific as to what not to do, it depends. And you have to put in place your own policy that has to be aligned with your employer, because it's not good enough to say comments here are my own or opinions here are my own and do not reflect my employer. You could still get fired for what you put there. So make sure that it's based on that, but decide, what do you want to shine? What is the mission that you have? Put in place your own personal, professional policy. for social media? What's the objective? What's the objective? And don't forget to stop sometimes and read back, like go back into your history. What did I put there? Does it make sense? Is it cohesive, coherent with what my vision of my career is?
Yeah, makes sense. I'm so conscious that this hour just flew by and we have about 2 minutes left. Can I ask you for a minute of closing comments? I usually ask participants in the webinar to be part of it, and in light of the world we're finding ourselves in, Julie, what are your closing remarks?
Invest in yourself. I believe in continuous improvement. I'm 66. I'm going to be 60 years old next year. And just recently, I became certified in Nova profiles. So, and you know, I just like invest in yourself. Take the time to recognize, to have gratitude, to include gratitude into your lives, and make your network of GNCC benefit the other people. Maybe right now things are not moving along for you, but find out from the other members, how can I help you? How can I help you? What is your ideal client? And then think back to this beautiful network that you have with GNCC. Could you maybe connect one of your family members to someone? Could you maybe like connect the dots? Connect the dots. It's not just about you. That's the beauty of a network. And believe me, it's going to come back exponentially. That's the power of a great network.
And I think it's also been so thank you so very much. So first of all, let me say thank you for having been with us and have spent the last hour. It's been so valuable to us. You have answered the majority of questions that have come forward, always with us having in mind that we want people to feel confident moving forward in this uncertain time. And maybe some things have changed, and how do we best communicate some of those changes and make sure that we move forward with confidence too. So it's been extraordinary to spend this time. I am certain that many of our participants and people who are watching it even later after today, and because we are sharing all of our webinars on our website and throughout our social media at the same time, if they want to connect with you, we will provide the link to your website directly. And Julie, thank you for offering everyone here too to connect with you on LinkedIn. It's been really valuable, and we appreciate it. So, and to all of our participants, thank you for being with us today. It's great to have received your questions, and I hope we've had a chance to answer them all. So thank you, and have a wonderful summer day.